all of us have our eyes on Rafa. You know, if your eyes are on Rafa, what about the Israeli hostages?
What's the solution for this ongoing conflict?
The two of us sitting and talking. Convert to Islam at some point according to what they think Islam is.
Does Israel feel they're innocent or hand in hand with Hamas?
These civilians are complacent and taking part in this terrorist activity. They knew they were aiding Hamas.
Israel's intention is to push them into the Sinai province of the Egypt and control the entire Gaza Strip.
And we don't want to keep Rafa. We left in 2005.
More than Israel, there is fans of Mossad too. How come they couldn't detect the plan of Hamas to invade Israel?
This was a failure, right? A failure of the system.
So, why can't Israel avoid civilian casualties?
What army goes and tells people, listen, we will be striking this area in 4 to 6 hours, please clear? From Hamas, who are trying to shoot them to force them to stay in North Gaza.
So, in short to medium term, how do you see the process of the ceasefire?
We did the ceasefire, and then Hamas, after a few days, I think it was about 8 days, started shooting rockets again. So they're the ones who broke the deal.
How do you see India and Israel relationship?
And Israelis have always loved India. That North India and South India are very different.
Which is the most memorable place or tourist place in India?
Banaras, I loved.
ಕಾಶಿ. ಹಾಯ್ ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ಸ್, ಮಸ್ತ್ ಮಗಾ .comಗೆ ಸ್ವಾಗತ. ನಾನು ಅಮರ್ ಪ್ರಸಾದ್. ಇತ್ತೀಚಿನ ದಿನಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಇಸ್ರೇಲ್ ಹಮಾಸ್ ಯುದ್ಧ, ಗಾಜಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗ್ತಿರೋ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್, ಇದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನೀವು ತುಂಬ ಕ್ಲೋಸ್ಲಿ ವಾಚ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತೀರಾ. ಮಸ್ತ್ ಮಗಾ .com ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಸುತ್ತು ಜಗತ್ತು ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಇಂಟರ್ನ್ಯಾಷನಲ್ ನ್ಯೂಸ್ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಗಮನಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದೇ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಕೆಲವೇ ದಿನಗಳ ಹಿಂದೆ ಆಲ್ ಐಸ್ ಆನ್ ರಫಾ ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂದು ಕ್ಯಾಂಪೇನ್ ಕೂಡ ನಡೀತು. ಸೇಮ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಅದರ ವರ್ಷನ್ಗಳು ಕೂಡ ಬಂದವು ಭಾರತದಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ. ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟ ಹಾಗೆ ಯಾರ ಹತ್ರ ಬೆಟರ್ ನಾವು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಬೋದು? ನಮ್ಮ ಜೊತೆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಭಾರತದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಸ್ರೇಲ್ ವಿದೇಶಾಂಗ ಇಲಾಖೆಯ ಪ್ರತಿನಿಧಿಯಾಗಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಟಾಮಿ ಬೆನ್ ಹೈಮ್ ಅವರು. ಇವರು ದಕ್ಷಿಣ ಭಾರತಕ್ಕೆ ಇಸ್ರೇಲ್ನ ಕಾನ್ಸುಲ್ ಜನರಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ನಾವು ಮಾತನಾಡಿಸ್ತಾ ಹೋಗೋಣ. ಇಸ್ರೇಲ್ನ ವರ್ಷನ್ ಏನು, ಇಸ್ರೇಲ್ ಏನು ಥಿಂಕ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಇಡೀ ಕಾಂಟ್ರವರ್ಸಿಗೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟ ಹಾಗೆ, ಇಡೀ ಆನ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಕಾನ್ಫ್ಲಿಕ್ಟ್ ಇದೆ ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟ ಹಾಗೆ, ಅದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಅವ್ರ ಹತ್ರ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಹೋಗೋಣ. Tammy, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate you accepting our invitation for this podcast. Many thanks to you.
No, I'm happy you invited me, and I have to tell you, it's my first podcast on YouTube ever, so I'm very excited for it.
Yes, we are excited too. To start with, madam, what is the Israeli version of argument when you see campaigns like All Eyes on Rafa?
Yeah, I'll answer you about this campaign, but then if it's okay with you and if you're interested, we'll go back to the beginning of this war, which is October 7th, 2023. The campaign All Eyes on Rafa, it's fine. Let's all of us have our eyes on Rafa. And if we're having our eyes on Rafa, we should look at the whole picture. You know, we should remember that on October 7th, when Hamas went into Israeli territory, attacked, murdered, and raped Israelis, they also took 251 people back as hostages into Gaza. Since then, some have been released, we can talk about it, but at the moment, 120 hostages are still being held by Hamas, and we found out this Saturday, not just Hamas, also by civilians who are helping them in Rafa, within civilian communities. So this just goes to show, you know, if your eyes are on Rafa, what about the Israeli hostages? There's two brothers. One is 1 year old and one is 5 years old. And they're still being held in Gaza. So why aren't you looking for him? You know, the very nice image that we see with the campaign, it's an AI. I'm assuming it's AI-generated image. It's not an image of Gaza. You see the mountains with snow in the background. It's definitely not Gaza. And I have to ask, you know, out of the millions of people who liked this campaign, do they even realize that the picture they're looking at is not Gaza?
What's the solution for this ongoing conflict? Because Prime Minister Netanyahu and his allies, they say they never accept two-state solution. Same with the Hamas. Hamas also doesn't agree existence of Israel. Right-wing parties in Israel and Hamas in Gaza. These two factors, they're not agreeing with each other on two-state solution. Sometimes it feels looking these things, It is not a conflict of decades, of centuries. It is a conflict of a millennium. Sometimes I feel this way.
Yeah, we feel this way, but it's actually not. I mean, it's a long-going conflict, but it's a few decades long. It's definitely not millennia. And let me just, I'll bear down in what you're saying, and obviously stop me and ask me questions if there are. One, comparing a terrorist organization, an internationally recognized terrorist organization, that has in its charter the elimination of Jewish people, the elimination of the state of Israel, the elimination of everybody who will not be a Muslim or convert to Islam at some point according to what they think Islam is. Okay, so comparing such a terrorist organization, we're talking about Hamas at the moment, to the government of the state of Israel is an unfair comparison. Same with India, another good friend of ours, a very, very close friend. Everybody's clear who Jaish al-Lashkar is or who the terrorist organizations that the Indian government has to fight. So we're very clear who's the terrorist, who's the government. That's the first thing. So not agreeing with a terrorist organization or not coming to terms with a terrorist organization is legitimate. And now the two-state solution. We've never said we won't accept it. Obviously, there are many
Recently,
things.
Prime Minister Netanyahu told.
Not like that.
Okay.
It's not off the table. But we keep saying throughout the years, recognition of a Palestinian state living side by side with an Israeli state. One, they have to recognize us and understand that we're there. Secondly, it has to be done through direct negotiations. It can't be done through terrorist attacks or through the UN or through some countries who have been, saying many things recently. It has to be done, the two of us sitting and talking. The Palestinian Authority, or what we, President Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian people, he sits in the West Bank. He sits in Ramallah. And he's in charge, and he's in charge of that entity there. He was also in charge of the Gaza Strip, with its 2 million and some people these days. But in 2005, Israel left Gaza unilaterally.
Yes,
we said, we're leaving this place.
Yes.
Take it. The Fatah, which is President Mahmoud Abbas's political party, took over in Gaza and they had elections. They won some of the votes, Hamas won some of the votes. But in 2007, all of a sudden, Hamas took complete control of Gaza. How did it happen? They killed Fatah political leaders. They took their families and shot them in the knees. They basically threw the politicians that they didn't agree with and weren't Hamas, they threw them off the roofs of the buildings in Gaza. So since 2007, Gaza is not, since 2005, Gaza is not, Israel doesn't control Gaza, but neither does President Mahmoud Abbas, and since 2007, this terrorist organization, Hamas, controls Gaza and are using the infrastructure, the people there, the civilians there, the international aid that they got, the UNRWA schools, the mosques. They're basically using everything. It has become, and we're learning this more and more, it has become a terror camp.
How do you see people of Gaza, civilians in Gaza, in this entire conflict? Does Israel feel they're innocent or hand in hand with Hamas?
You're asking a very good question, right? It's a very complicated question. And on Saturday, when we freed the 4 hostages that were being held, by the way, in high-rise buildings, civilian, regular apartment buildings, like we know. Noor Gamani, the young woman, she's, in her early 20s, was held in an apartment in one building, and in the building next to it were held 3 men together. Mm-hmm. So they were held in somebody's apartment. It could have been my apartment, it could have been your apartment. So these civilians have been holding them hostage. Let's say we might not be from October 2023, okay? Let's say they're even holding them for 6 months. These civilians are complacent and taking part in this terrorist activity. They knew they were holding a hostage or 3 hostages. They knew they were aiding Hamas. So it becomes, it becomes a philosophical question. So what do you do? Where do you draw the line?
Yeah, now what Israel wants to do, because when conflict started, Israel started the operation from the north of the Gaza Strip. Now, majority of Gaza population is concentrated in the Rafa, which is closer to the Egyptian border. Many argue that Israel's intention is to push them into the Sinai province of the Egypt and get rid of all Gaza people from the Gaza Strip and control the entire Gaza Strip. Do you agree?
Listen, I'm sure some people in Israel, do have this maybe dream Okay, but let's be realistic. We're in Israel, okay? The Jews are in Israel to stay. Same thing with the Palestinians, whether they're in Gaza or the West Bank or in any of the 22 Arab countries surrounding us. These people are here to stay. Egypt is an independent country. Nobody's going to push anybody to them.
Even Egypt is giving some kind of threats. If Israel continue to push Gaza people into the Egypt, we are not going to tolerate.
One, yes, okay, they're an independent country. They can say what they want. But also, we can't physically push. There's a border. Egypt has built a wall, with its border in Gaza. And if you're counting the underground tunnels built by Hamas, we can talk about that. That's a different issue. But there's no physical way of pushing people, 1 million people, or however many into Egypt. So I don't think, listen, we are aware that we're not going to keep Rafa. Okay. We also cannot afford to keep Rafa, and we don't want to keep Rafa, right? We left, not just Rafa, sorry, all of Gaza. We left in 2005. We never thought of coming back. We had no plans of coming back. We had no plan of starting a war. We didn't want this territory. We were happy with the quiet. We were thinking that the international aid goes to the school. We saw, like the rest of the world, all these UNRWA schools popping up and kids going there. We didn't realize that these kids were being taught to hate Jews, to Jews, that there were so many tunnels being dug under UNRWA schools and everywhere, and, being weapon storage or being terrorist hubs, or even some of the teachers were some of the terrorists that attacked us on October 7th and belonged to Hamas.
Yeah, here one important question arises. As you're well aware of the fact that in India, Israel has huge number of fans. More than Israel, there is fans of Mossad too. Here in India and around the world, Mossad is considered one of the topmost intelligence agency in the entire world. So, Israel, it has powerful security establishment, and it has Mossad, one of the premier intelligence agency in the world. How come they couldn't detect the plan of Hamas to invade Israel?
Yeah, you're asking very good, very, very tough questions. Look, I'm sure that once this war is over, that once the hostages are home, all these committees will come up and investigative units, whether it's the army or the government or a joint or a Mossad investigative unit. This was a failure, right? A failure of the system, a failure or an impossibility of the government to protect its citizens. Same government who failed these people, who got them to be taken hostage, will do everything in its power, and also the army, of course, the army protects its citizens, right? Will do whatever it needs to be done to get the 120 remaining out. Because if we don't do that, then that's another failure of these people. And not just these people, of the country as a whole.
Prime Minister Netanyahu just told recently that Israel is not going to relent until all goals are met. What are the goals here? To bring back the hostages or completely eliminate Hamas from the Gaza? What is that goal, ma'am?
First and foremost, and I think at the top of everybody you ask, is bringing the hostages home. The second, and I think it more or less can go together as well, right? We have to hurt or debilitate Hamas. So from the 24 units that are spread throughout Gaza, I think we've done a pretty good job these past 8 months, debilitating their ability. We've gotten weapon storages, weapon-making factories. We've stopped the inflow of more and more munitions, whether it's from Iran or from other places, into Gaza. We've been able to capture and eliminate many of the terrorists, including some of the higher ups on the chain. I think it's clear to everybody that Hamas cannot continue to rule Gaza. Initially we thought that there were 500 kilometers of tunnels under Gaza. We found out now that it's over 700 kilometers of tunnels. And how were these tunnels built? With sacks of cement brought in from Japan and Europe, with money brought in from many international donors. In these tunnels, some are big enough for huge trucks to go through. Okay, it's not some little tunnel built. They have rooms there. They have food storage. They have medical supplies that they stole from the World Health Organizations and the hospitals themselves. Some of the piers go into hospitals, so if they need to be medically taken care of, they can just go through the tunnel, enter the hospital, and be taken care of. They have electricity there. They have fuel there. Everything that they claimed is missing to the civilians of Gaza, Hamas has it. You know, we all need to get out of this myth that Gaza was ruled by Hamas. Gaza was used by Hamas. Something needs to change there. Not for Israel even, but for these 2 million people living in Gaza.
Can't Israel conduct targeted killing of Hamas executives inside Gaza? Because Israel is known to do these things effectively around the world, including your enemy, Iran. So, why can't Israel avoid civilian casualties conducting targeted surgical strikes or targeted killings inside Gaza?
Yeah, one, Israel is doing, and the IDF is doing everything that's humanly possible to really not have collateral damage. You know, even from the beginning of the war, what army goes and tells people, listen, we will be striking this area in 4 to 6 hours, please clear. What other army in the world actually, you know, there's so many pictures and videos of Israeli IDF soldiers clearing a route for people to leave North Gaza into Rafa, and they're standing there protecting the Gazan citizens from Hamas, who are trying to shoot them to force them to stay in North Gaza. Israel is fighting this insane war. Okay, we have terrorists under us in the tunnels. We have terrorists hiding within the civilian populations on the ground, in the tents, in the apartment buildings like we spoke of. And obviously they also go to the top. They had some unmanned flying vehicles. It doesn't seem that they do, but I'm saying also from the air. Why? Because they still have rockets. And they're still able to put themselves on top of buildings and shoot down at us. And we're doing all this while trying to minimize civilian casualties.
Where it is heading, because as we see recent statements from the both sides, we are not seeing any progress regarding ceasefire. Some or other issues arising, and ceasefire process is getting halted. So, in short to medium term, how do you see the process of the ceasefire?
Yeah, look, President Biden last Saturday, right, a week ago, he came out and basically announced the Israeli offer for a ceasefire. That included, if I remember correctly, at least 42 days of ceasefire, and then we'll see. But 42 days is a very long time, right? 17 countries came out saying they support these deals. Many of these 17 countries actually have their citizens still being held hostage in Gaza. And Israel accepted the deal, but Hamas came out Thursday saying they didn't accept it. And last November, November 23, when a deal was offered, Israel took the deal. We did the ceasefire. We held to our end of the deal 100%. And then Hamas, after a few days, I think it was about 8 days, started shooting rockets again into civilians in Israel. So they're the ones who broke the deal. Maybe if they didn't do that, we would be at a whole different stage right now.
When we look at this issue from outside, many may be thinking that it is a political issue. There is Israel, there is Palestinian Authority, and there is Hamas, a terrorist organization which is ruling or controlling Gaza. And this is a three-party issue. And it is a political issue. Some may feel that way. But is it religious issue? And things written in the religious text and people's faith attached to it and beliefs. Do you see that way? It is a religious issue more than a political issue?
Listen, I'm sure that part of this and part of people's beliefs, right, any individual beliefs, comes from where they were raised and what religion they were raised, what they were taught, whether in the mosque or the church or the mandir or the synagogue. Obviously, you know, part of it is religious. But this is why we have, not in Gaza, but this is why we have governments. Some Bible and Old texts, you're still allowed to have slaves. Okay? But we don't have slaves these days. Women's rights are non-existent in many, you know, when you read even our Bible, you know, women were sold for a few horses or some land. We don't do this anymore, even though it's part of our religion. So we need to learn, and this is why we have governments, is to understand what, first and foremost, you need to protect your people, and you need to protect the area where you live, and you need to make sure they're safe. No religion, you know, religion or not, if you don't have your people, then what do you have? Working assumption is that these terrorists don't even represent correctly the religion they claim to represent.
Israel was slowly improving its relationship with the Arab world through Abrahamic Accords. After this conflict, after this fresh conflict erupted. What are the geopolitical implications for Israel in the Arab world?
Yeah, it's a good question. One, I was lucky enough to be on the White House lawn in September of 2020 where these accords were signed, and I saw it, and the feeling and the hope and the atmosphere was just amazing. And I think it's still showing its positive signs, right? The UAE is a very serious actor in these negotiations and trying to figure out how to bring stability back. We see Bahrain, we see Morocco. Okay, everybody's taking their own stance, which is fine, but they're not actively engaged or actively assisting these terrorists. I think the map has proven how good it is, how correct it is. Also, we see Jordan, we see Egypt. Okay, we have previous peace agreement with them. And even now on the table, don't forget that Saudi Arabia, through the U.S., there's some discussion of perhaps hopefully going towards normalization with them, also with Indonesia. You think Iran wants, for example, India to have IMEC and have this corridor going through the Middle East and into Europe and then the U.S.? You think they're happy if there'll be peace? You know how much money is made off war, how much money they make, and how much money goes around from selling weapons and weapons know-how, and not to talk about all the other illegal trade that is done with these terrorist organizations, and all funded by Iran. And also other countries, maybe if you look even in a more international view, want the world to be not stable. They want the U.S. to be part of the conflict. Many players are in here, and they're playing this game and trying to keep the area unstable. They kidnapped or took hostage a ship that had 17 Indian sailors on it. Why would they do that unless they wanted to cause more havoc, unless they wanted India to also be affected by this? And there's the whole Middle East area with, Hezbollah in Lebanon and Iran wanting to control the region, whether it's Iraq or Syria, Lebanon, Gaza. They want to, they don't want us there. Iran also says this, right? They want to eliminate us, and this is their game against us.
Sometimes we wonder how Israel manages to keep itself safe and busy same time, because one side there is Hamas, north there is Houthis, Hezbollah from the south of Lebanon, and there are Houthis in the Yemen, and there is Iran. You are surrounded by enemies from all the corners. Still, Israel is able to bring investments and make economic progress, and also accommodate up to 19% of Arab Israelis, I guess.
21%.
21%. How does Israel manages all these?
One, we have no choice, right? This is where we are. This is what we were given, and we have to make the best of it. So listen, we found gas a few years ago, natural gas in our sea, in the Mediterranean Sea a few years ago, which helped. But until we found that, we had no natural resources, no fuel, no diamonds, no gold, no natural minerals. We had nothing in Israel. Very little land because we're a tiny country, no water at all. And by the way, the Syrian-African rift and the Middle East area where we are, is the most prone to the climate change that's happening. It's the most affected at the moment by the climate change happening. So we're in a very difficult area. Obviously, as you yourself said, with the terrorist organizations surrounding us, with the Arab countries surrounding us. Luckily, we spoke about it. We made peace, with Egypt, then with Jordan, then with other countries. But we have no choice. So we had to use the little natural resources
and innovate.
And innovate, exactly. Exactly. That's why we started building in greenhouses, right? And building in greenhouses, which you see now in India also now for the past few years, and we do it vertically because there's no room. So we don't have room to spread out in luscious, beautiful fields and lots of space like here. So we have to use a greenhouse so the weather outside or the heat won't be affected. You can water it less, so you use less water, and you do it vertically, so it takes up less room. So we've done many things. I just told a friend of mine, he didn't realize, so I'll tell you as well, that the cherry tomato, for example, was invented in Israel.
Which one? Cherry?
The cherry tomatoes, those little
cherry
cute
tomato.
tomatoes? Yeah. So I actually, okay. But I'm saying there's many things because we had to do it. And when the whole high-tech revolution started with engineers and computers, and now the whole IoT and all AI and cyber, what do you need? You need a computer. You need a good brain to do it. So it's something we can invest in, something we can do, because you don't need natural resources for it. So this is what we're doing. This is how, we have a very good relationship and bilateral trade with Europe, with the US, with India that's growing yearly, which is amazing. Well, and we're sitting here in Bangalore, right? It's a Silicon Valley of India. And there's so many Israeli companies here. And every year more are coming in and more cooperation is done because it's something relevant to us and definitely relevant to you here. And it's relevant to the world, what we're doing.
How do you see India and Israel relationship getting better and better day by day? And how both countries can contribute to the global good?
One, it's getting better, really. We've had ties for longer than 30 years, but officially in full diplomatic ties, we've had them now for 31 years. And really each year it's growing. And it's getting better and better, and I was lucky to be posted not here in India, but in New Delhi 20 years ago, and I'm here now in Bangalore. So I actually see it. I'm not just talking it, I'm living it. I was here throughout the years. I was here when I was in Israel when Prime Minister Modi was the first ever prime minister to come and visit Israel officially. And then Prime Minister Netanyahu in 2018 had the reciprocal visit here. And I was in both. So I actually, I see our ties deepening. And Israelis have always loved India. But you're right. Now we're doing things together because Israel is tiny, as I said, right? So our technology, let's say, might be fitting just for Israel. But if something is successful in India, that means it can be successful in countries in Africa, all over Southeast Asia, and in different places. Because if it works here, it's probably going to work in other places as well.
I think this is the idea behind I2U2, Israel's innovation, and US and UAE's money and India's scale.
Exactly. It's spanning the Middle East, North America, Asia. Very, very powerful countries, each for their own reason. At the end of the day, this is what's good, and we have to keep living on this planet, all of us together.
Tammy, you were in India 20 years ago. Now again, you are here in India after 20 years. How you see change happened in India through these last 2 decades, according to your understanding?
Yeah. One, I have to say that North India and South India are very different. So it's a whole different image.
No, in India, every 15 to 20 kilometers, culture changes, language changes. Even if it is the same language, accent changes.
Yeah. No, it's amazing.
It's a diverse country.
Exactly. No, and it's one thing to know it, but then it's another thing to live it and experience it, which is what I love about being here. But no, listen, India is in a steady stream of development, and it's just going to continue. I'm not going to even quote the numbers. You're the 5th largest economy now. You're soon going to be shifting to the 4th and 3rd. But what India is doing now, where it's, investing in infrastructure, investing in education, investing in its young, I think this is one of the most potential the biggest potential here. You have a young population, an educated population, an English-speaking population, a population now that, with the years, even more than 20 years ago, has ties everywhere, right? The Indian population in Canada, in the US, in Australia, and Germany, they're growing. So India is also becoming more global. You were always a regional power. But now India is becoming an international power and an international player. The trajectory is very, very, very clear.
Okay. What is your most rewarding experience in India till now?
That's a good question. How far back are we going? Listen, both my daughters were born in India.
Okay, nice.
So if you're asking me what's the most rewarding, my eldest is Noah Mala.
Okay.
Like Mala, like
How
a
old
Mala.
Is she? Yeah.
She's 17 now.
Okay.
And Avia was also born here 15 years ago. But what's my most rewarding? This is a very good question. I want to say the visits of the Prime Minister.
You can say something from Karnataka. If it is difficult to bring and scan all of the things from entire India experience.
Yeah, listen, there's so much.
There will be so many things. So you can tell something about here? Karnataka. Yeah.
I think it's what I spoke about before, what we've been able to do since I've been here in the issue of water, especially water for agriculture. And we've been trying to harness this water in agriculture with women farmers. So we're doing projects.
In Karnataka villages?
In Karnataka villages,
okay.
And also in Kerala villages.
Mm-hmm.
So, and a little bit, but less in Tamil Nadu. But I think seeing this, and I started working on it, so it's the base at the moment. But if this grows, I think it will hit all the spots that I always like to hit, which are, sustainability and water issues and women empowerment, which I think, even though we're both democracies, Israel and India, and we both had one woman prime minister each, I think there's still a lot to do for women, for girl empowerment in both our countries. And I think this hits this spot as well. So I love this project.
What is your favorite Indian dish?
Paneer tikka, which I like, but with plain naan.
Okay.
Not with butter naan. And I like palak. I'm veg. Sorry if I wasn't clear. And I like palak paneer a lot.
Majority of Israelis are veg, no?
Not majority, but the number is growing.
Yeah.
The number is growing. And palak paneer I like a lot. Yeah. And your chilies. I love very spicy food, so Karnataka is a good place for
You
me.
should try masala dosa.
I love masala dosa. Yeah, but that's more of like a breakfasty snacks.
Yeah. When you go back to Israel someday, so if somebody asks you about India and the places you have been in India, which is the most memorable place or tourist place in India you recall at the first?
Okay, listen, so many places have hit me very much. Banaras, I loved.
Kashi.
I think you just feel, it really is the vibe and the place is
Why Banaras?
just very different. Because you feel the belief there, you feel the hope, you feel, you're talking about religious background. I'm not Hindu, obviously. I'm Jewish, but there's something in a place that offers, one, it's beautiful, but it offers a hope, and you see the rituals happening, and I think it really does strike you, the amount, and with the Ganga, and so I love Banaras. I love Dharamshala.
Okay.
Very much for, again, the beauty and the Himalayas, but also the fact that India allows the Dalai Lama to be there and practice there, and you see the monks and you see the freedom that India allows. That's
Wonderful.
really something that will stay with me. And now I'm not sure if to say Goa or Kerala beaches, but right, we have to do some beaches. I can't just be both Goa and Kerala. I love the beach. I love the beach. I love, sometimes sitting. I can't do it for too long because I get all, but for a couple of days, just, seeing the beach, eating good fresh fruit. And so either Goa or Kerala for beaches.
Yes, madam. Thank you so much for giving us time. You have been insightful. This conversation has been. You gave us Israel's perspective into various range of things. Thank you so much. We wish you all the success in your goals and endeavors. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time. Thanks.
Thank you.